It was a warm afternoon in August, the kind of day where the sun hangs lazily in the sky, casting long shadows over the quiet roads of Sauquoit, New York. The air smelled of late summer, freshly cut grass, dry pavement, and the faintest hint of an approaching evening breeze. It was the perfect time for a bike ride, the kind of day when kids spent every possible moment outdoors before school started again. On this particular day, a 12-year-old girl pedaled her pink and white bicycle down Hackadam Road. She wasn't in a hurry. She had taken this route countless times before. A peaceful road, lined with trees, empty fields stretching beyond, and the occasional passing car. The kind of road that felt safe, predictable, the kind of road where nothing ever really happened. The bike glided smoothly over the pavement, its small wheels humming softly. The girl, wearing a bright pink t-shirt with Guess Who embroidered on it, turquoise shorts, and brown sandals, looked at the road ahead. It was just a short ride home. Maybe 10 minutes, maybe less. The road stretched ahead, empty except for the occasional parked car and a driveway, the scattered houses set far back behind tall trees. A place where the world felt distant, where the only sounds were the rustling of leaves, the occasional chirp of a bird, the rhythmic squeak of bicycle pedals. But then the quiet shifted. Something was different. Something that, if noticed, might have made her hesitate. A few more minutes, and she would be home. A few more minutes, and everything would have been just another ordinary afternoon in Sauquoit. But some afternoons don't end the way they are supposed to. Sara Wood was just 12 years old. She was full of energy, always smiling, and loved to make people happy. She had shoulder-length curly brown hair and bright blue eyes that sparkled when she laughed. Everyone who knew her said she was kind, creative, and always had a way of making things fun. She loved dancing, whether it was in her room, at school, or just spinning around in the backyard. She was always moving to the music. She also loved writing. She had a little notebook where she wrote down her thoughts, stories, and poems. Sometimes she would sit quietly, lost in her own world, thinking of new things to write. Sara had a favorite singer, Dolly Parton. She loved listening to her songs, and even dreamed about meeting her one day. Music was a big part of her life, just like her family and faith. Her father, Reverend Robert Wood, was a pastor at Norwich Corners Presbyterian Church. Sara spent a lot of time there, helping out with church activities and making friends with everyone. She was the kind of person who could brighten up any room with just her presence. She was a girl with big dreams, a kind heart, and a life full of possibilities. But one summer afternoon, everything changed. August 18th, 1993, was an ordinary summer day in Sauquoit, New York. The sun was shining, and the air was warm. It was the kind of day when kids played outside until the evening, enjoying the last weeks of summer before school began. Sara Wood had spent part of her day at vacation Bible school at Norwich Corners Presbyterian Church, where her father was the pastor. It was a place she knew well, filled with familiar faces and the comfort of routine. She had attended many church activities before, and this day was no different. That afternoon, Sara said her goodbyes and left the church. She got on her pink and white bicycle, a bike she loved, and started riding home. The road was familiar, Hackadam Road, a quiet stretch with trees and open fields. It was a route she had taken many times before, never thinking twice about it. It was safe, or at least it seemed that way. She wore a pink t-shirt with Guess Who embroidered on the front, turquoise shorts, and brown sandals. The kind of simple outfit any 12-year-old might wear on a warm summer day. As she pedaled, the wind brushed through her curly brown hair, and the sun cast long shadows on the pavement. Home wasn't far, just a short ride, maybe 10 minutes, but she would never make it there. Sara Wood never arrived home that evening. As the hours passed, her family grew worried. At first, they thought maybe she had stopped somewhere, maybe at a friend's house or taken a little longer on her bike ride. But as the sun dipped lower in the sky and dinner time came and went, the unease turned into fear. Her father, Reverend Robert Wood, and her family began searching. Calls were made. Neighbors were asked, but no one had seen Sara. She had vanished somewhere along the short stretch of Hackadam Road. As night fell, the search intensified. Flashlights swept through the trees, voices called out her name, and people moved through the area, hoping to find any sign of her. Then they did. Sarah's pink and white bicycle was found leaning against a tree by the side of the road. It wasn't knocked over. It wasn't broken. It was just there, as if she had simply stepped away for a moment. But she hadn't. Nearby, in the brush, something else was found, her coloring book and crayons. They were hidden, almost as if someone had placed them there. The pages of the book were untouched, waiting for Sara to finish coloring. But Sara was nowhere to be found. It was clear something was wrong. A girl does not leave behind her bike, her crayons, her book, and simply disappear. News of Sara and Wood's disappearance spread quickly. What started as a small search by family and neighbors soon turned into a full-scale effort. People from all over the town, and even beyond, came together, determined to bring Sara home. Hundreds of volunteers joined law enforcement. They searched fields, forests, and backroads, calling out Sara's name. Some walked in long lines through the woods, looking for any sign of her. Others handed out flyers with her picture, knocking on doors, asking if anyone had seen the little girl with curly brown hair and bright blue eyes. The town of Sauquoit was shaken, but they were not giving up. They tied teal ribbons around trees, fences, and lampposts. Teal became a symbol of hope, a reminder that Sara was still out there somewhere, waiting to be found. Every ribbon was a promise that she would not be forgotten, that the search would not stop. For days, the community worked tirelessly. They prayed. They searched. They held on to hope. But deep down, fear was growing. As time passed and no new clues appeared, the question remained, where was Sara? For years, the disappearance of Sara and Wood remained a mystery, haunting the small community of Sauquoit and leaving law enforcement with little to no answers. Investigators followed every lead, combed through the countryside, and pleaded with the public for any information. But the more they searched, the colder the trail became. Then, in January 1996, more than 2 years after Sara vanished, there was a breakthrough. A man already behind bars for another crime confessed. His name was Louis Lent Jr. Louis Lent Jr. was no stranger to law enforcement. A school janitor from North Adams, Massachusetts, he lived a double life, one that was far more sinister than his unassuming job suggested. Behind his quiet demeanor was a pattern of stalking, luring, and attempting to abduct children. By the time he was linked to Sara's case, he had already been convicted of kidnapping and attempting to assault a 12-year-old boy in Massachusetts. The nature of his crimes made police take his confession seriously. While serving his sentence, Lent made a shocking admission. He told investigators that he had abducted Sara and Wood on August 18, 1993. According to his confession, he had taken her, murdered her, and buried her body in a remote location. Authorities acted swiftly, desperate to bring closure to Sara's family. Following Lent's directions, search teams were deployed to a remote wooded area in western Massachusetts. Helicopters hovered above. Cadaver dogs sniffed the cold earth. For days they dug. For days they searched. But they found nothing. And then Lent did something chilling. He took back his confession. He recanted his statement, claiming he had never taken Sara at all. The details he had provided, once seemingly precise, were now full of inconsistencies. Despite his confession, there was no physical evidence linking him to Sara's disappearance. No body, no DNA, no witnesses. For prosecutors, this presented a painful dilemma. Without a body, without clear proof, how could they secure justice for Sara? But authorities had no doubt. Louis Lent was a predator, and he knew more than he was admitting. By this point, Lent was already convicted of another murder, the brutal 1990 killing of 12-year-old Jimmy Bernardo in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. Jimmy had been abducted from a movie theater, tied up, assaulted, and killed. Lent led authorities to his body, buried in a secluded area near an old ski resort. Unlike in Sara's case, this time, there was physical evidence. This time, there was no denying his guilt. In 1997, even without a body, prosecutors in New York formally charged Louis Lent Jr. with Sara and Wood's murder. Rather than face trial, he took a plea deal, admitting to the kidnapping and murder of Sara, and would in exchange for a sentence of 25 years to life. But to this day, he has never revealed the true location of her remains. Even behind bars, Lent continued to toy with authorities. In later years, he hinted at other victims, claiming to have killed more children across the Northeast. But like with Sara, many of those names remain unknown, their fates lost in Lent's web of lies. Though Sara and Wood never made it home that summer afternoon, her story did not fade into darkness. Instead, her family and community turned their grief into action, ensuring that no other child would suffer the same fate without a fight. What began as a tragedy became a powerful movement for hope, awareness, and change. In the days after Sara's disappearance, her family clung to the belief that she might still be out there, waiting to be found. As time passed and the reality set in, they vowed that her name would never be forgotten. They established the Sara and Wood Rescue Center, a place dedicated to assisting in the search for missing children. The mission was clear: to bring missing kids home, to support families left in a void of uncertainty, and to ensure that every child's face was seen, every voice heard. The work of the Rescue Center became a beacon of hope, drawing national attention to the plight of missing and exploited children. Over time, the organization merged with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, NCMEC, expanding its reach, strengthening its resources, and amplifying its mission. Through their efforts, countless families found guidance, support, and in some cases, reunions with their missing loved ones. But beyond the office walls and search databases, Sara's legacy lived on in a way that was deeply personal to her family and her community, through an annual bike ride in her honor. Every year, hundreds gather to pedal through the countryside, the same kind of road Sara once rode along so freely. Each turn of the wheel is a reminder of a life taken too soon, but never forgotten. Families ride together, parents hold their children a little closer, and as the breeze carries laughter and conversation through the air, there's an unspoken promise to never stop searching, to never stop protecting. Along the route, banners read, "Ride for Sara, ride for hope." Signs are placed along the way, each featuring the face of a missing child, their names spoken aloud, their stories remembered. The ride isn't just about honoring Sara anymore. It's about all the children who never made it home. Though Lewis Lent Jr. took Sara from this world, he could not take her impact. She remains a symbol, a reminder that we must always protect our children, always stay vigilant, and always hold on to hope. Sara and Wood was just 12 years old when she disappeared. She should have grown up, followed her dreams, and lived a life filled with love and possibility. But on that summer day in 1993, her journey was stolen from her, leaving behind heartbreak, questions, and a town forever changed. But even in tragedy, Sara's story has never faded. Her name became more than a memory. It became a movement, a call to action, a reason to keep searching, to keep fighting, to keep protecting those who cannot protect themselves. Every child deserves to come home. Every family deserves answers. And every community has a role to play in keeping them safe. The work is not finished. Sara's story is one of too many. But as long as we remember her, as long as we speak her name and continue the fight, there is hope. This video is dedicated to Sara and Wood, and to every missing child whose story remains untold. May their voices never be silenced, and may our efforts continue to bring them home.